if I said I was playing Masterpiece, you'd probably assume that I was playing the brand new secret rare Masterpiece, the True Draco Slaying King. Well, you might be right in a lot of other cases, but in today's case, I've actually built a deck that tries to summon the original Masterpiece, who was just a Draco Slayer, and maybe you don't know that this card exists, but I've wanted to play this card for a while, and what's happening, or at least what I'm finding is happening, is that as Link Summoning approaches Yu-Gi-Oh!, I keep wanting to play decks that will be slaughtered by Link Summoning, basically. We looked at the Sky Scourge Burning Abyss deck in the last video, a deck that unless a Link monster, Burning Abyss monster comes out, will be completely useless. And then we're playing this deck, which often is Pendulum Summoning 4 or 5 from the extra deck, which just isn't feasible when Link Summoning comes out. But this deck's a lot of fun, so let's talk about the original Masterpiece for a sec. So to summon it, and it's a special summon, not like a tribute summon, you have to tribute a Draco Slayer and a Drake Overlord. So basically you're tributing Vector and then either Luster or Master. And while it's on the field, once per turn, you can just negate a card or effect for free. You don't have to banish anything or discard anything. It's just a free negate. And then if it's destroyed by an opponent's card, either in battle or card effect, you can special summon a Vector and then a Luster or Master from your deck. So how we're setting this up in this particular version of the deck is we're trying to summon either Zambow or Box of Friends and then destroy them with Metalfoes monsters or Dragonic Diagram to trigger their effects. Zambow gets to Box of Friends, and then when you destroy Box of Friends, you can summon Vector and Master from your deck in defense position, and that sets up your Masterpiece. So the main combo here, and you'll see it happen a lot in this gameplay, but the main combo is you activate Dragonic Diagram, pop Box of Friends, add Masterpiece, because you can still add it, even though it's not one of the newer guys. You add Masterpiece to your hand, and then special summon Vector and Master, and then you can get rid of them both for Masterpiece, and then you can set up your scales and Pendulum Summon back the Vector and the Master to make, I mean, a rank 4 or Dinosaur or Magister is pretty popular. I like that guy a lot, just in general. So that's the main goal. You're trying to put Vector and Master on board, tribute them both to summon a guy that can just negate stuff, and it's pretty cool. Once again, I do have to say that it's completely dead when Link Summoning comes out. There's no real way to, I mean, I don't know. I know that you can like Pendulum Summon from your hand and stuff, but, and especially with Metalfoes, you're just trying to set up your extra deck to Pendulum Summon, and I don't think this deck will be super viable after that. But for now, for the next couple of weeks at least, if you're looking for a fun deck to play, I think this is the way to go. And I discovered a lot of things in this deck. Well, first of all, I should mention that it's not that crazy for me to play this deck, just because if you remember from a couple months ago, maybe even more than a couple months ago by now, but from a little while back, I played a Draco Slayer Metalfoes deck that was playing a lot of the same cards, and the reason that I like Draco Slayers and Metalfoes is that it means that pretty much any time that you open Luster, you can cycle through Ignister, Dinosaur, and Magister. Maybe not always the Magister and the Dinosaur, but usually one of those two. And if you happen to have a Master as well, you definitely can cycle through all three of them. And that gets you to Hope Harbinger or another rank 8 if you choose to play it. And the Magister search in the end phase is really cool, especially when you combine it with the level 1 Bismugear Metalfoes that searches a guy in the end phase. You'll get 2 searches in the end phase, one for any Pendulum monster and then one for Metalfoes. And I like that. I like end phase searches. I like cards like Skarm, especially when you don't forget them. I think they're cool, and I think that Magister, Dinosaur, and Ignister just have a lot more value when you play all of the Draco Slayers, and I guess Vector as well. I also really like that Draco Face Off is like an instant win button that you just can draw randomly. And I mean, people haven't really been playing that card for a while now because it's so inconsistent. Maybe some people are playing like Perform Pels or Magicians and they're playing that card, but I don't think they are. I don't think a lot of people want to play Master right now, but in this particular deck, it's so good, and not all these replays are against top tier meta decks. I don't have that kind of time to, I mean, if you just go on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro and play for 5 hours, you probably play against like 2 meta decks because no one's playing them. But I think just from like a turn 1 board opening standpoint, except the very game that's playing right now, where my turn 1 is set 1 pass. Besides that, though, you can see pretty much anytime you draw either Box of Friends or Dragonic Diagram, you're like set. That's almost always a pretty cool combo. And even just drawing Box of Friends with not the Dragonic Diagram or the Masterpiece is still pretty good, just because you can use it to get you can use it to get Vector and Master, obviously, but you can also use it to get Stealin', and that sets up, if you get Stealin' and then like a Vector or Master, that sets up either a Dynaster, or you can just use it to make Mithrilium off of Metalfoes Fusion, which, while it's not game-breaking and it's not the win condition of this deck, I still think it's good enough to warrant playing these cards. Now, one of the other cool things that, and the main reason I originally tried to play Draco Slayers in this deck, was that I think one of the problems with Metalfoes in general right now is that they don't have enough low scales. That was even more of a problem when you were playing the Magispectors, but by playing the Draco Slayers and Vector, you have a bunch of low scales, because you have 6 more 3 scales, because we are playing a full 3 copies of Master and Vector in this deck, just because, I mean, when you play it, and even in its gameplays, you can see that because Box of Friends summons 2 of them from the deck, and then when a Masterpiece dies, it summons 2 more of them from the deck. Not even counting if you don't draw any of them, or if you do draw any of them, that's like going through almost all of them. So you really want to make sure that you have targets to summon. I even thought about playing Lecter, not because you can bring it out with Box of Friends, because you can't, but you can bring it out with the Masterpiece when it dies, and it's just like another thing to make a rank 4 with. But as far as my testing for this deck goes, I think it's pretty viable, at least on a casual level, or even, I honestly would take this to a regional. I mean, I've taken bad decks to regionals just in general, but I think if you have Metalfoes lying around and you don't have, well, I guess it's hard to say, because like, obviously if you don't have a lot of money, you probably can't afford Dragonic Diagrams, but if you can't afford Zoo or actual Masterpiece, the new one, but you can afford Dragonic Diagrams, or you have a friend that you can borrow them from, I don't think this is the worst option in the world. And if Diagram's the only secret rare from the new set that you can get, even 1 or 2 copies, because I think I'm playing like 1 terraforming in this deck. Obviously, like in all my gameplay videos, I kind of bounce back and forth with builds, but I think I'm only playing 1 or 2 terraforming, and in that case, if you can pick up like just 1 or 2 diagram, you can just make up the difference with terraformings, and it'll be basically the same thing. So maybe it's not the most budget option, but if you already have Metalfoes lying around and you get like 1 or 2 diagram, that's pretty much all you need to build this deck. So I think it's a semi budget option. We'll just call it that. But as for Pendulum Summoning as a whole, I should say, well, I'm correcting myself a lot today in this video, but for Pendulum Summoning right now, I feel like a lot of people are scrambling to sort of make it work, just because, I mean, when Link Summoning comes, no matter what, Pendulum Summoning is going to be different. Not only do you have the fact that you can't Pendulum Summon from the extra deck unless you have Link monsters on the field, you also have the fact that the Pendulum monsters now take up back row spots, and I mean, in this gameplay, there's a ton of times when I have 4 back row, and I wouldn't be able to do that anymore, and it's like, even if Pendulum Summoning is sort of semi-viable, and there certainly will be decks that are good in Link format with Pendulum Summoning, I don't doubt that at all. It still is sort of an infinite resource, even if you can't Pendulum Summon 5 anymore. Like Dino Mists are a pretty good example, because they have the card that adds stuff back from the extra deck, or like Magicians are not terrible, because they have like Oath Dragon, and stuff like that, but Pendulum Summoning in general is going to be a lot more restricted, just like all the extra deck summoning archetypes at this point. But I think a lot of people are trying to play these Pendulum monsters because they realize that going forward, they're just never going to be like this ever again. One of the weird things about Link Summoning is that you really can't go back from it. And I think if you can say in the past that like formats have been defined by their mechanics, in terms of like, wow, everything changed when we went to Synchro Summoning, everything changed when we went to Exceed Summoning, everything changed when we went to Pendulum Summoning. I think that's more true for Link Summoning, because, I mean, really, we're playing a completely different game at this point, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think that's the truth. I think that we are, with Link Summoning, playing a completely different game. And I know what they were trying to do. I know that they were trying to make people think about where they actually place their monsters and sort of make people use this new mechanic, but it's like, I feel like one mechanic that was unexplored and that could have been explored was that we never had any pendulum monsters that had different scales, because I mean, they all have the 2 scales, the blue and the red one, and boy, I mean, I can remember when they were first announced, I definitely thought that they would make monsters with different scales, and that would kind of add that dynamic of where do you place your pendulum scales and which monsters are more consistent. I mean, is it having a bunch of them that have 2 different scales, is that better than having a bunch that have consistent scales, or are there drawbacks to those type of cards? And I felt like that could have been like a new development, instead of creating like a mechanic that like ruins all the previous mechanics. And I've talked about this before, but my main problem with link summoning as a player, at least, is that with the other mechanics that they introduced to the game, they never force you to play them. When synchros came out, if you didn't want to synchro summon, fuck it, don't synchro summon. When exceeds came out, if you want to stick with synchro summoning, then sure, stick with synchro summoning. Don't play any exceed monsters. Same thing when pendulums came out, and when pendulums came out, obviously some decks did have some advantages with it, but in general, if you didn't want to play them, fuck it, don't play it. And even now, not a lot of decks play pendulums, pretty much just Metalfoes. But with link summoning, you're actually like forced to play link summoning if you want to summon regular monsters from the extra deck. I don't really like that. I feel like that sort of restriction is bad. I don't mean to sound just like a hyper casual here, hating on new mechanics, but I feel like with the other mechanics, they just give you more options. With link summoning, it just gives you one option and pushes you into it with no other choice. That's kind of my thoughts on link summoning. Also, as a side note, I don't know if you guys have been in this game very long, but one of the things that I remember is when Box of Friends was revealed to come out in Number Hunters, and they didn't reveal the full effect. They just revealed that it special summoned 2 monsters with 0 attack or defense from the deck, and boy, I can remember people talking about how that would like break the game, because I mean, think about if you don't if they don't have to be normal monsters, and like I don't even think that it was revealed that you had to destroy it yet, so we had no idea. We thought it might just be a rescue rabbit for like 0 attack and defense monsters. Like, I know the big one at the time was like you can summon 2 Atlantean Dragoons from your deck, and like that's like insane. Obviously that didn't happen, but it definitely was like on people's minds of like, holy shit, this could like totally ruin the game. But it didn't, obviously, because it summons normal monsters and you have to destroy it. But this is like the first deck that I've found that is actually like pretty playable, and I had a lot of fun recording this gameplay in the past couple videos that I've done with this, and I've actually taken sort of a break from doing Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro replays because they were really stressful, but this one was a lot of fun. I do love Metalfoes a lot, so that's probably why. Anyway, though, the last thing I have to mention is that if you do want to see this deck list, it is on my Patreon. I don't like putting deck lists in videos just for my own personal reasons that I've discussed beforehand, so if you want to check that out, please check out my Patreon. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Bye.